Who is the best Counter-Strike 2 player in the world? I think a lot of people are thinking to themselves, well, who's the number one? Who's the GOAT? Who's the guy that we think is the best? And I think that there's no definitive answer. I think right now we have 3 players who are playing at an incredible high level in ZywOo, in M0NESY, and in DONK. It's a 3-man race. Now, behind them, there's certain other players. You'd mention your Nikos, your JL, your Wonderful, your Shiro, your Santaris, etc, etc. Some honorable mentions, you know, players that are playing at an incredible high level. But to be completely honest, there's still a big gap between the top 3 and the top 4 to top 10 sort of line. However, in this video, I will give you an argument for each of M0NESY, DONK, and ZywOo why I think that you could say that they are the best player in the world. I would love to hear your take though on it in the comments below this video. Who do you think currently, as of right now, is the best player in the world? So let's get into it, and let's start with the number 1. We're looking at ZywOo.
Smoke goes down, the wall bangs lively, but Waso peak plants safe. ZywOo finds 2 kills, just like that. We're back to the even keel. The no scope for the 3rd. It's a deep jail clutch from ZywOo. Oh, every single time.
Now, there's no debate that ZywOo is still one of the best Counter-Strike 2 players in the world. People argued that in the beginning of the year, he was slowing down a little bit. He couldn't find his footing. He didn't find as much impact as you'd like to see from ZywOo, but I beg to differ that that's changed over the last couple of months. If you're also tired of paying too much when you're buying or selling skins, then use GamerPay. Low fees and up to 30% cheaper than the Steam market. It's a P2P place, which means the skins stay safe in your inventory until they sell. Let me show you how it works. As a buyer, you just search for your favorite skin, and they'll pop up quickly on your screen. As a seller, you can easily list your skins here. Even tells you what a good price on average price will be, so you avoid getting scammed. When you buy or sell your skins, the money will be put into escrow, which means GamerPay takes care of it until the skin is either traded or sent to the new buyer. Essentially, it makes it safe to deal with skins in a very complicated market. So make sure to use GamerPay in order to avoid getting scammed and get the best prices on your favorite skins. His consistency is at an all-time high. His rating for the year is at an all-time high. He's playing some wonderful Counter-Strike, and I guess the only thing right now that is holding him back for claiming that number 1 spot definitively is the fact that Vitality as a team is not winning too many trophies. Now, ZywOo did win IM Cologne. He did become the MVP, and that is a massive accolade to his name, and that's a massive reason why he's still in contention to be the best player in the world. Now, without IM Cologne, without winning the MVP at IM Cologne, I don't think there's a big argument as to why ZywOo is the best player in the world as of right now, apart from his statistics, of course, and apart from the fact that he's in that 3-man race. However, winning Cologne, getting the MVP, and consistently showing up every single time Vitality is at a tournament throughout the entire year is a great case. It's a great argument as to why you look at ZywOo and you think to yourself, he's the best player. We know what he stands for, obviously. Not the most flashy player, not the guy who's out there in interviews gassing himself or putting additional pressure on himself or his teammates. He's always very thankful to his teammates. He's always very humble in victory, even in defeats as well. Never comes off as a guy who's not, you know, very well planted on the ground. Doesn't have the biggest ego, and sometimes I feel like that's what you need from ZywOo. You need a little bit more ego. You need a player that is sometimes willing to hunt those eco frags just to boost the stats a little bit, but he's not that guy. He's not that guy at all. Now, there's another argument, and this is where we get very game specific. This is where the nerd Jacob is coming into the picture. Vitality as a team play a lot of Inferno, and on Inferno, as of recently, we know there's a lot of saving going around. There's a lot of games where you don't really get that many kills, and your average rating is, I would argue, slightly lower compared to maps like Mirage, Anubis, Nuke for that matter as well, where you have a lot of duels and less saving. So for the fact that Vitality is playing an awful lot of Inferno, that is also kind of hindering ZywOo's stats a little bit. Just a tiny little bit. I'm not talking, you know, a 0.10 difference. I'm just saying that his rating probably would be slightly higher. And if it were slightly higher, he would have the highest rating for the year out of all the players. So playing Inferno as a team is not helping ZywOo's case in terms of a pure statistical point of view in order to claim that number 1 spot. I think that's a worthy argument. It's a worthy factor to take into account. I'm not saying that makes the difference, but playing Inferno and saving all the time and not really getting that many duels and not getting that many kills, because that's just the way Inferno's played right now, is not helping his case. That's something, you know, you can take into consideration. I would say, for my money, ZywOo is still a fantastic Counter-Strike player, and I think there's a case to be made that he's now the GOAT of Counter-Strike. When you look at Counter-Strike Global Offensive, look at Counter-Strike 2, I know Simple have had that, you know, status for a long time, but ZywOo is now entering his 5th, 6th year where his worst ever placement in terms of player rankings would be the 2nd best player in the world. His debut year, he won Player of the Year. So imagine having a player that when he's having a bad season, which he's never had, or when he's having a worse off season than some of the previous seasons he's had, he's just the 2nd best player in the world. So for my money, I think with ZywOo coming into this year, still giving M0NESY, still giving DONK a run for their money, there's a case to be made that after 2024, we can consider him the GOAT of Counter-Strike. Ballsy statement, I know, but given Simple is not playing at the moment, recently he joined Falcons, so maybe he can, you know, open that conversation again. I think the argument between ZywOo and Simple is slowly but surely tipping in the favor of ZywOo. However, that's my case for ZywOo. Curious to hear what you think about his case as to why you think he may or may not be the best player in the world as of right now.
Timing, looking back, jumping around that corner. Zontex goes down, so it's DONK up against his first real clutch.
And he called out Magisk specifically, saying Magisk with an Intel Grand Slam, with 4 major trophies, this guy would be interesting to go up against, and he's got his chance.
Magisk has been in this arena. He's lifted the major trophy on this stage, and now he goes up against a player taking his first steps on the stage itself, and he's moved out towards main. He's got the angle on him, making steps. Magic's nose, and DONK wins the clutch. That is delightful. That is divine.
Now, DONK is another player that we, of course, have to mention in this 3-man race. DONK started off the year like I've never seen anyone do it before. Considering this is his first full year as a professional player, he's matching what ZywOo did in his first year. And I said back then that I don't think any player will ever come close to do what ZywOo did in his first year as a professional player. But guess I was wrong. DONK came in and he's been doing tremendously well for himself. IM Katowice, of course, stands out as one of the greatest individual performances a player has ever had at any esports tournament ever. Posting a 1.70 rating on average at IM Katowice, going all the way to the grand final and dominating the tournament with his team in team spirit is something I have never seen before. That in itself is a great argument to why obviously DONK is still in the conversation for being the best player in the world, best player of Counter-Strike 2. Now you can also look at it from a different side. His tournament at Katowice was so good that he's had certain tournaments where he hasn't really showed up, where Spirit haven't shown up, where he's been, you know, for a DONK standard a little bit lackluster, but that Katowice accolade, that Katowice tournament is still keeping him up here. Now without that Katowice performance, I think there's a case to be made that DONK probably wouldn't be #1, but that's easy to say. You would say the same for ZywOo. Well, without IM Cologne, he wouldn't be #1. True. Without IM Katowice, DONK wouldn't be #1. Well, true. But it was such a big standout performance that you have to take in consideration that we haven't seen such a high from any other player throughout the year, and we're probably not going to see it again. So how much do you put stock and value into that? There's also a case to be made for DONK that Team Spirit right now are struggling as a team, and Team Spirit have been missing out on tournaments. They didn't participate in Pro League, they're not going to participate in IEM Rio, and what we saw from DONK during the Blast Fall Finals, the Blast Group Stage, wasn't really at a high level either. So he slowed down. DONK, of course, still plays at a high level. He still had good tournaments, mainly some of the, dare I say, not S-tier tournaments, but the tournaments just below where he's hoisting MVPs and he's still putting up 1.40 ratings. Of course, take nothing away, because as a player, that's insane to be able to do that. But I think we're entering a stage now where if DONK is not playing well at the RMR qualifier for the major, and if he's not having a great major, there's a case to be made that DONK could finish as the 3rd best player of the year, despite having had such a strong start to the year. So that's my case, that's my argument for DONK, that I think statistically speaking, right now the highest rated player in the world, also a player that's had the highest peak, which also I put in a lot of value to, a lot of stock into. But for my money, his consistency has gone down, the Team Spirit performances has gone down, and the fact of the matter is he's missing tournaments, which means he hasn't played as many maps, as many tournaments as a M0NESY or as a ZywOo, which again you have to take into account. So there's both a case for and against. I don't know what you think, but I think DONK is absolutely insane. But is he in fact the best player in the world right now? There's a case to be made for both yes and no. Curious to hear what you guys think in the comment below.
M0NESY tries to make this play. It all hinges on getting past Split. He's seen him. He wins that fight. No way. Survives the cross down in the lower. Has a chance at the bomb plant here. VP will not be able to react to that in time. This is the ball rolling for M0NESY. A safe plant nets him the bomb to play around. Fame is 1 kill shy of the ace. And it's just M0NESY left to get past. This re-wrap around towards short. Fame, does he think he hits that timing? Norbert is not considering this. They think they've cleared Monster. They think they've uprooted M0NESY. They couldn't be further from the truth. Fame sticking the bomb, but M0NESY runs him down!
rotation.
Then, of course, you have M0NESY. M0NESY as the final candidate for who is in fact the best player right now. I think M0NESY's strongest case is that he's the one playing the most maps, and he's arguably also playing on what has been the weakest team throughout the year. By no means am I saying G2 is a bad team, but it's a fact that G2 haven't won as much this year and haven't really gone as far in the tournaments as you would like them to. There's been roster changes, you brought in Snacks, you brought in Melps, you switched 2 players over the summer break, so for M0NESY to resettling into that environment cannot be easy as a star player, especially when you consider that you took away HooXi, his in-game leader, and replaced him with Snacks. For an AWP player, that can mean a lot of things. It can mean more freedom, more saying how you want to play, but it can also mean that the structure around you is changing a little bit, and that can be hard for an all player to fit within. So I think there's many factors that goes into play when you consider how well M0NESY has been playing throughout the year. I also think consistency-wise, M0NESY is consistently one of the best players in the world. Make no mistake, you wouldn't be in this conversation if you weren't, but his peaks are absolutely insane, and there's also tournaments where he doesn't have that amount of impact you'd like to see. One thing I will say for M0NESY's case here is that he's playing by far the most maps, he's playing on the weakest teams, and he's having significantly closer games than a lot of other people around. You know, G2 are always in close series, which means that the rating will go down. I will say another thing that speaks in favor of M0NESY is his ability to dictate the game. I think from a pure eye test of the game, he has more impact sometimes than DONK or ZywOo, solely from the fact that a lot relies on him. You know, without him playing well, G2 is not winning much. Without him taking charge of the matter, without him seeking the duels, without him putting himself out there and constantly being in danger of dying, constantly being in danger of having inconsistency games, G2 wouldn't win much. I think the best way of explaining it is if you were to put M0NESY in ZywOo's role, I think M0NESY would have a higher rating. I think M0NESY is required to do more in G2, and he's required to take bigger risks in G2, which hinders his, rating from a statistical point of view a little bit. We've seen his clutching ability. We've seen his ability to take over and explode on the server and dictate games, and we saw at the Blast Fall Finals, which he just won and got the MVP, that he still has that ability. And I think that's why M0NESY is still in the conversation for my likelihood to be the best player in the world. The fact that he got the MVP at the Blast Fall Finals, the fact that he stepped up lately, and the fact that there's still IM0NESY, there's still a Major, there's still the RMR to showcase his skill. Now, that's how I want to round it off as well. With M0NESY, there is a case to be made that he's the best player in the world. However, I personally feel that he has the least strong case out of the 3. That can change though with Rio and the Major coming up. And I think that's how I want to round up this video. For my money, this is such a close race that if you win the MVP at IM0NESY, or if you win the Major with your team and you have a strong tournament, this can change all of a sudden again. We're heading into the last 2 months of the year. You look Major Qualifier and the Major. So the 4 big tournaments left of the year. Now, if any of these players stand out in those tournaments, if any of these players get another MVP or get a couple of MVPs or win the tournaments, that could be what tips the scale. That could be enough to say that you are the best player of 2024. And to me, that is hella exciting. I cannot remember the last time we had such a close race between 3 contenders for the best player in the world. It's always been about ZywOo and Simple, and back in the day about Coldzera, Olaf Meister, you name it. This time around though, it's impossible to differentiate them. I can't give you the answer. If I were to give you a power ranking right now, I'd probably say ZywOo number 1, DONK number 2, M0NESY number 3. But if you ask me tomorrow, I may say DONK number 1, ZywOo number 2, M0NESY number 3, or M0NESY number 2, ZywOo number 3. I don't even know. I feel like it depends on how you look at these cases. So for my money, you have some of the best players in the world in the best shape they can possibly be in, and we're heading in towards the Shanghai Major, the Singapore World Finals, IM0NESY. It's gonna be so fun to watch. So as I said, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Who do you think as of right now is the best player in the world? And then I'll revisit this video. We'll come back end of the year and we'll crown who we think is the number 1 of the world. Thanks for watching. Please drop a like, please drop a subscription, and as I said, let me know in the comments below what you think.